guys, welcome back to my craft room and back to another craft room chat. I know I've been on a trend of doing our craft room chat the last day or the last Sunday of the month, which ended up being both this month. But I've been preparing something very interesting next month and then also the month next, so it's going to be exciting. And it's taken up a lot of time of planning and whatnot. So, our book for Crafty Book Talk this month is Murder Most Crafty. It is edited by Maggie Bruce, but it has 15 different short stories in it by different authors. So, I'm going to kind of go through the synopsis or the summary of each story and kind of give you the rundown but not spoil it, hopefully. So some of them you do learn the murderer or who is murdered right off the bat, and then some you have to wait until the end to figure it out. So the first story is... Oh, I totally forgot to write down what the name of the first story was. Oh, no, I did. Okay. It was just a little too small to read. The Collage to Kill For. So, a lady, she is in a business area. She works for... I don't really need to go into too much detail here. So, the lady finds her neighbor dead in her house when she goes to borrow some toilet paper because her business didn't have any toilet paper at that time. So, she finds the neighbor dead, and they find out that the dead sister's husband has a heart condition. The dead lady would give them $10,000 3 times because they couldn't get insurance. And the sister of the dead lady thought that the money was dirty money, because why would she have, that much money? Plus she had opened up that new shop to do collages after not having that much money from working in, I think it was a gynecology office, I think. It just said doctor's office, but then in the end it kind of... So, and then she wants the lady that found the other lady while she was stealing the toilet paper, she wants her to investigate it. So, it was suspicious, of course, because I was like, maybe the husband or maybe the sister murdered the sister to get the money that she wasn't giving them. Yeah. But that ended up not being it. So they found a clue at the dead sister's, I'm going to call it a studio. It was a shop, but it seemed more like the studio was where they went. So they found an obituary of a non-married, 3-month pregnant librarian and a note that said, "With love, Alice." And it was all in this collage, and there were a few sets of the collages. And the collage was used in court to find a doctor guilty. So that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil it too much, like how they ran down that. That was kind of a really more in-depth than most of the other ones are. So, because after a while I'm like, that's giving away too much. You guys need to read them if you find it interesting. So the second story is The Gourd, the Bad, and the Ugly. So of course we're talking about gourds in this one. A strange man, in a hurry, like really rushing, wants a gourd made exactly like one that he has a picture of. And she says, yeah, okay. I already made one 3 days ago for this other lady that wanted the same exact gourd. So that's suspicious already. And it turns out that she sees in the paper that the partner of those two people died in a car accident. His brakes went out, and she saw the gourd in the back of the photograph. So she went to the city, and the gourd was missing. Strange, right? Okay. So I guess the day that the guy died in the accident, the guy kept yelling, $14 million. $14 million. Gourds, $14 million. Okay, that's all I'm going to give you. The third story is Call It Macaroni. This one I loved, okay? Okay, it wasn't like the best one, but it was pretty good. So she goes to this Crafty store, and she kind of describes it as being in like a witch's cottage, because there's like soap making material and whatnot, and makes the air smell kind of earthy and herbally. And it was just so funny, because it really, crafting, I mean, can be associated with witchery. That sounds weird. So it's just always interesting to see people parallel it. So the sister didn't want, well, the sister's the crafty one. The one that we follow isn't really crafty, but she came with her to the crafty shop because she needed a ride. And the sister's like, let's pigeonhole, right? Or what's the divert into the crafting store. Which we've never done that. So the sister ended up falling off a ladder, and a bunch of beads fell down, and she lost her, I think it was an emerald, in her earring. So her and the owner have to go to the hospital because they have amnesia. No. It just sounded like it would fit in there, but no. They had some broken things. So the sister runs a crafting group, and of course she's bedridden now because of her fall. So she has her sister, the lady that we're following, do the craft, and she tries to teach her how to do resin setting with different, I think, flowers or something inside of it, and she wasn't getting it. So she's like, okay, I'll just make up a craft of my own and we'll do that. So they end up doing macaroni art. So one of the craft ladies talks about how her husband left her and threw all of her crafts in the fire and onto the carpet, like all of her oils and whatnot. So it was crazy. I was like, oh! Like, all of that work, like the needlepoint, the crocheting, knitting, whatever she had done, he threw it in the fire. So, they did the macaroni art a few days, or I think it was a few weeks. They had no word from Betsy, was the lady's name, and her ex-husband. No word. Oh, I'm not going to go into any more detail, guys. Next story. Very good as well. No Good Deed is what it's called. So, a crappy husband and a too nice wife. The wife has a lot of free time because her husband works, and then she does crafts in the time that he's at work for other people. And she has these friends. It's interesting to see, because I don't think they're actually her friends. I think they just like her giving them free decorations. I don't know, that's the vibe I was getting. So the husband ends up retiring because he's got a heart problem, and the crafts kind of stop coming. and they start diminishing. And the friends want to get rid of the husband because he is kind of crotchety, I guess. He's a mean dude. So they want to get rid of him for her sake, because he must be driving her nuts, and because she can't do her work or whatever. So hilarity ensues. I've got to tell you, this one was a funny one at the end. It was, I couldn't believe it. And then it was sad, because, you know, death. But, so the fifth one, If You Meet the Buddha. This one was really interesting. I kind of like the ones where they have a cultural kind of... This one didn't really have a big overtone. It was kind of just like a little, just slip that in there. Okay. So this one, a mafia hitman is dead in an alleyway, or I think it was an alleyway. I might be getting that mixed up. But the lady that processed them, I don't remember what it's called, but she had a conversation with the Buddhist priest, and they decided to, I think they invited her to come to the thing, the Zendo? I think that's what it's called. And so that she can focus, because that's all their thing of meditation and focusing and whatnot. So there's a few jobs that can be given to people when they enter the, I think it's called a Zendo, but I might be thinking of something else. But when she goes, she's given the job of sewing the priest's robes, which is a very labor-intensive, you have to get every stitch right and whatnot. So it's very focus-driven, which is what she needs to do to learn to be focused. So it turns out she was the one that checked the priest in at the station, and they had a conversation, yeah. Oh, and then the head lady that gives the jobs, she was staring daggers into this lady, and she couldn't figure out why. And then it comes into play that Vincent Viola is the mafia guy that died. Vinnie Johnston, or Johnson, I think it's Johnston. I wrote Johnston, but I might have messed that one up. Was going to be ordained to be the Buddhist priest. And then you can kind of guess what goes on. But you can't guess all of it because there's some really interesting turns and twists. So the next one is Strung Out. Oh, so good. It was actually a teenage boy. So it was interesting to get that different profile, because I'm used to seeing, or reading, I guess, about, you know, the women being the crafters, or sometimes older men. Not generally, it's generally women that we read. So it was interesting to read the teenage boy aspect. And he's a knitter, and he does some other crafts. And one of his friends, you know, is like, tough guys don't craft and whatnot. And he had actually created a beaded door curtain, and it was so cool. So, and he called it the dream catcher, to kind of keep the nightmares away. And one of his friends caught one of the bead strands on his backpack, and that made the beads go all over his bedroom. And as he was cleaning up beads, he finds a baggie with a kind of sandwich in it with some alfalfa sprouts. But they're not alfalfa sprouts. I guess it is marijuana seeds. I wouldn't have known that. But the mom knew, and the mom told the dad, and then the mom tells the Crafty friend who owns a Crafty store that the boy goes to, and then detective finds out who it is, and that one actually had no murder. I thought that was interesting, because it's murder most crafty, but no murder. Okay, so next one. Oh, what a tangled lanyard we weave. is that one called. This one I hated. Oh my word. It took so much for me to try to finish it. I was so tempted to just be like, I'm skipping it. The guy is just, oh my goodness. So full of himself. And the wife too, but we don't really talk much about the wife. We only see her for a few sentences. But, oh, oops. I was like, oh, that's not the right one. I was looking at a different story. The coach dies by a lanyard. Okay. Which name, you know. And one of the things that the guy that we're following does is he states outright what he does or is thinking, or it's so like he says, I'm a trained observer. Everyone like, okay, we don't get to know why you're a trained observer. We just, you're a trained observer. Okay, we're good with that. I have to be kind of like immersed before I can believe something. So if he would have told me, I've done so many different private investigating things that I've learned to become a trained observer. I can't just say, or I can't read, I'm a trained observer, and be like, okay, I understand you. Like, that might just be my brain though, but it annoyed me like crazy, because he does it a few times, not with the I'm a trained observer, but with different statements. Ugh. And everyone in the story is a jerk. It was very hard to read. There was a special needs character in this, so that might have made it a little harder for me to like the main character, because he was treating, well, you treated everyone like crap. So yeah, it was very hard to read. So on to the next one. How to Make a Killing Online. This one was so good. Oh my gosh. So this lady makes fly fishing trout lure thingies. See, I didn't think I was going to like it because I'm not big into fishing. I don't really know much about it. So I was like, you know, this is probably not going to end up being something I'm interested in. But boy, was I wrong. It ended up being really good. So she she sells these fly fisher thingies online on eBay. And she makes a killing, a profit on them. Like upwards of $200 for one fish lure thing. So she gets an email from another Martha, who is a teenager. And they correspond, and then she sends a package with one of the popular, I think it was called the Black Minks. That's what it was called. And Martha Jr., the little one that sent the correspondence first, says her dad wants to place an order and to send her tax info. And the lady says, well, I don't have any tax info. I'll send you my social security, which should work. And the next thing we know, a guy comes to the door with a gun and says he is Martha. Not going to tell you anymore because that'll ruin the rest of it. So the next one, the M word. Lady does basket weaving. She's in a contest at the moment when we find her. And she fell in love with the contest guy. Which she left her husband for. And this one was crazy. She was crazy. Bad crazy, not good. And oh my word. It was a roller coaster. This one was a definite read. I don't want to tell you too much because this story was really short and fast, which I love. And really got to the point. So it's kind of hard to tell you without ruining a plot point or something. So, yeah, that one was a good one. The next one is Bereaved. A bunch of holiday break-ins occur, and it is currently New Year's, and her husband is working, I think he's a sheriff's deputy. He works, and he's doing all of the break-in management, making sure no one's breaking in places. And she goes off to her brother's for a bonfire, and there was a car that went on one of their back lots and went to the backwoods part. And the brother's like, there shouldn't be on my land, which they say something really funny in here. And it's like, if you ask a farmer to do something, he'll of course say yes, and he'll like keep, being nice to you and do other things for you. But if you do something without asking the farmer, he will come after you, which I agree. Like, I've seen this happen. It's really interesting. So, I don't know if, like, it's with all farmers, but from the farmers I've seen. So it turns out the car was not teenagers, but someone breaking into the house that is behind them. And then they set a trap in the sister-in-law's house while they're away. And they catch the person, and oh my word. Interesting who it is. So the deepest blue is they're looking for indigo, and she found it on some smocks of lost children statues. I think it was in Japan. I was going to say China, but it's Japan. She got the name and place of the lady that makes them from a monk after spending some interesting amount of dollars on donations and charms to get information. The lady lives and works with a living national treasure. She does great indigo dyeing, and she learns some different, I want to say conspiracy theories or lores about indigo dyeing, and it kind of comes true, but kind of not. That was an interesting one. Next one. Waxing Moon. Candle maker helps out a friend restaurateur because he runs a candle making shop. She does catering on the side as well as she runs the restaurant. And she has I'm going to say tackle box, but that's not right. It's like a cashier box, if that makes sense, that's bolted to the table. And her money is stolen. And clearly it's someone who had a key. She has not given anybody a key. And this one was a great use of wax and candles. I'm going to tell you that. But I'm not going to tell you anymore because that's going to spoil it. So Light Her Way Home. It's a candle shop. Owners take it's just her own. It's the wife and his sister, so her sister-in-law, take the really expensive candles to this saint, and it's the best candles for prayer, I guess. They take it to this lady that hold herself in a box or a cell with just a hole into the church and a window outlooking the world. Like, so people can come up for prayers and solace and talk to her. And a fire happened at the church, and the lady's cell was burnt, and she had died. But some other things occur. This one was really interesting. It was a great refresher because it was a different time. It was a different place. We were in Paris, and it was a different, I don't think they gave us the time frame, but it was medieval, I think. It was a very good, like, whoop away from all the other ones, and it was so good. It was a great refresher, of course. This one, it was pretty good. I liked it. Although there were a few things that I was a little skeptical of, like all of her jumping to conclusions. Sorry guys, I know this video is so long already. But bear with me. It's because there's 15 stories in here. So Ellys' chair, two different women. One is self-employed and makes furniture and sells it. The other is a big shot company lady. The lady that is self-employed has lots of great views that I love, because a lot of times crafty books don't get into the politics. I don't know. A lot of times, well, we've talked about it on this channel before. Free time. Can you actually make money off of your crafting? Are you actually content just crafting and not getting into a power position or whatever? So this lady really had some great views on crafting and being content and some other things, but alright. So she bought this chair from an old friend's house while they were thrifting or yard sailing, because that's the only common thread they had. And this lady had passed away, and she had been confined to her house by her relatives. And she starts finding some clues in the chairs. It's the chair that she is I'm going to say reupholstering, but that's like not the only thing she does. Just remaking the furniture, but I don't know. Fixing up. There we go. Alright, that one was a pretty good one. Except I wish that it wasn't so jumpy. Like, oh, I must have done this and this and this. Like, okay, it's good that you're, have a different way of looking at it, but also, you're not always right. Alright, so the last one is Mother Wit and Tea Cakes. And it's a crotchety old lady who doesn't like much at all. She, son and daughter-in-law decide that she should move over to Los Angeles with them from New York, and of course she's mad because she wants to be an independent woman. But she's a little old, so she can't quite take care of herself anymore, and then also they thought it would be good to have her there for the grandkids. But as soon as she moves, the son dies of a heart attack, but the mother-in-law still moves over, and so she goes to a senior center, and the first day they're having a funeral for this lady's dog. And they talk about the medical group next door and how these old people were constantly going over there and having to do appointments and getting tests and whatnot. And they're very expensive tests, and they're just billing Medicare. Right there, big letters. Billing Medicare. Expensive tests. And it turns out that the doctor's car was the one that ran over the dog. So, can we kind of guess where that one's going? Alright, so, overall summary of the book. I really, well, not a summary, but my opinion, I guess. A lot of the stories were too descriptive. It's very hard for me to get through a story with very flowery language, and I want to just get to the point. I want to learn a lot more about the story, which they could have fit more story in if they didn't do as much descriptive language. I know some people like the descriptive language, so, most of these stories might be better for you. But the ones that I loved, oh my gosh, they were so good. And that's something that's really good about short story, I think they're called anthologies. Yes, anthology. Not anthropology. That's when I was like, anthology, yeah. So that's what's good about these anthologies, is you can kind of pinpoint which authors and what actual style you really like to read. Because there are so many authors and so many different stories, story styles that go along either, you know, the mysteries or detectives or even romance or any kind of story. And there are a lot out there. So short stories are a great way to find an author that you are tending to like through their short story, and then you can branch off into their more mainstream novels or other books that they've written. And that really gives you a good solid, you know, who to read, what you like, what to look for, without spending so much time reading a book and then finding out, I don't really like this author. So you get like a, 10, 20 page story to kind of give you an intro into what they're like. And I kind of like that. Because a lot of times, especially with crafty books, they don't have the same kind of views as I do. Most of the time, they're either very frustrated with what's happening, or they don't have a good mindset when it comes to crafting. Like one of the things the lady says, she says I've never understood the distinction between fine art and crafting. Because fine art could be anything. It could be rough art. It could be, there's not a difference there. And I was like, yes. And a lot of people don't agree. And you can tell with their writing. So it's very nice to be able to find authors that agree with that. And hopefully when I read their other books, if I do, then that same message still occurs. Which I really hope. Because it would be sad if it wasn't. But that is Murder Most Crafty. Hopefully you got a pretty good summary of all of the stories. And if you're interested in any of them, I would recommend picking it up. Because there are some gems in here. It was an interesting read for sure. And I love short stories. I think they're my favorite to read. I'm pretty sure. Alright guys, I hope you're having a crazy day, good crazy, not bad crazy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!